7:10 p.m., 10/25/2024. I will give the skip ahead timestamp for the beginning. Moon for the Misbegotten is the official, unofficial, or unofficial official sequel to Long Day's Journey into Night. Been putting off reading this one for a long time, but after having completed Patty Chayefsky's 6 teleplays anthology, I want to get back to Eugene here and see what happened after a long day's journey into night. I believe this play is either loosely or directly modeled after his brother Jamie, and Jamie, who suffered a very hard life after accidentally causing the death of his baby brother from a case of the measles before Eugene was born. And I believe this is very late in the game for Eugene O'Neill in his constant excavation of understanding his family. Been meaning to read this a long time and haven't yet, so what better time than now to begin? So I'm going to break this up probably in a couple different reads because it's, let's see, over 100 pages. Let's see, 967. It's about 100 pages, so I'll either break it up into 1, 2, or 3. But let's begin. Let's see what Moon for the Misbegotten has. A Moon for the Misbegotten. A Moon for the Misbegotten is published herewith with no revisions or deletions. It is an exact reproduction of the original manuscript which I delivered to Random House Incorporated on completing the play in 1943. It has never been presented on the New York stage, nor are there outstanding rights or plans for its production. Since I cannot presently give it the attention required for appropriate presentation, I have decided to make it available in book form. April 1952, Eugene O'Neill. Character: Josie Hogan, Phil Hogan, her father, Mike Hogan, her brother, James Tyrone Jr., T. Stedman Harder. Scenes: Act 1, the farmhouse, around noon, early September 1923. Act 2, the same, what with interior of sitting room revealed. 2 o'clock that night. Act 3, the same as Act 1, no time elapses between Act 2 and 3. Act 4, the same, dawn of the following morning. Scene of the play. The play takes place in Connecticut at the home of tenant farmer Phil Hogan, between the hours of noon on a day in early September 1923 and sunrise of the following day. The house is not, to speak mildly, a fine example of New England architecture, placed so perfectly in its setting that it appears a harmonious part of the landscape, rooted in the earth. It has been moved to its present site and looks it, an old box-like clapboarded affair, with a shingled roof and brick chimney. It is propped up about 2 feet above ground by layers of timber blocks. There are 2 windows on the lower floor of this side of the house which faces front, and 1 window on the floor above. These windows have no shutters, curtains, or shades. Each has at least 1 pane missing, a square of cardboard taking its place. The house had once been repainted a repulsive yellow with brown trim, but the walls now are a blackened and weathered gray, flaked with streaks and splotches of dim lemon. Just around the left corner of the house, a flight of steps leads to the front door. To make matters worse, a 1-story, 1-room addition has been tacked on at right. About 12 feet long by 6 high, this room, which is Josie Hogan's bedroom, is evidently homemade. Its walls and sloping roof are covered with tar paper, faded to dark gray. Close to where it joins the house, there is a door with a flight of 3 unpainted steps leading to the ground. At right of door is a small window. From these steps, there is a footpath going around an old pear tree. At right rear, through a field of hay stubble to a patch of woods. The same path also extends left to join a dirt road, which leads up from the county highway, about 100 yards off left, to the front door of the house, and thence back through a scraggly orchard of apple trees to the barn. Close to the house, under the window next to Josie's bedroom, there is a big boulder with a flat top. A Moon for the Misbegotten, Act 1. Scene, as described. It is just before noon. The day is clear and hot. The door of Josie's bedroom opens and she comes out on the steps, bending to avoid bumping her head. Josie is 28. She is so oversized for a woman that she is almost a freak. 5 feet 11 in her stockings and weighs around 180. Her sloping shoulders are broad, her chest deep with large, firm breasts, her waist wide but slender by contrast with her hips and thighs. She has long, smooth arms, immensely strong, although no muscles show. The same is true of her legs. She is more powerful than any but an exceptionally strong man, able to do the manual labor of 2 ordinary men. But there is no mannish quality about her. She is all woman. The map of Ireland is stamped on her face, with its long upper lip and small nose, thick black eyebrows, black hair as coarse as a horse's mane, freckled, sunburned fair skin, high cheekbones and heavy jaw. It is not a pretty face, but her large dark blue eyes give it a note of beauty, and her smile, revealing even white teeth, gives it charm. She wears a cheap, sleeveless blue cotton dress. Her feet are bare, the soles earth-stained and tough as leather. She comes down the steps and goes left to the corner of the house and appears around it toward the barn. Then she moves swiftly to the right of the house and looks back. Josie. Ah, thank God. She goes back toward the steps as her brother Mike appears hurrying up from right rear. Mike Hogan is 20, about 4 inches shorter than his sister. He is sturdily built, but seems almost puny compared to her. He has a common Irish face, its expression sullen or slyly cunning or self-righteous. He never forgets that he is a good Catholic, faithful to all the observances, and so is one of the elite of Almighty God in a world of damned sinners composed of Protestants and bad Catholics. In brief, Mike is a New England Irish Catholic Puritan, grade B, and an extremely irritating youth to have around. Can't turn the page. Mike wears dirty overalls, a sweat-stained brown shirt. He carries a pitchfork. Josie. Bad luck to you for a slowpoke. Didn't I tell you 11:30? Mike. How could I sneak here sooner with him peeking around the corner of the barn to catch me if I took a minute's rest, the way he always does? I had to wait till he went to the pig pen. He adds viciously, where he belongs, the old hog. Josie's right arm strikes with surprising swiftness and her big hands on the side of his jaw. She means it to be only a slap, but his head jerks and he stumbles, dropping the pitchfork and pleads cringingly. Don't hit me, Josie. Don't now. Josie, quietly. And keep your tongue off him. He's my father too, and I like him if you don't. Mike, out of her reach sullenly. You're 2 of a kind, and a bad kind. Josie, good-naturedly. I'm proud of it, and I didn't hit you or you'd be flat on the ground. It was only a love tap to waken your wits so you'll use them. If he catches you running away, he'll beat you half to death. Get your bag now. I packed it. It's inside the door of my room with your coat laid over it. Hurry now, while I see what he's doing. She moves quickly to peer around the corner of the house at left. He goes up the steps into her room and returns carrying an old coat and a cheap bulging satchel. She comes back. There's no sight of him. Mike drops the satchel on the ground while he puts on the coat. I put everything in the bag. You can change to your Sunday suit in the can at the station or in the train. And don't forget to wash your face. I know you want to look your best when our brother Thomas sees you on his doorstep. Her tone becomes derisively amused. And him way up in the world, a noble sergeant of the Bridgeport Police. Maybe he'll get you on the force. It'd suit you. I can see you leading drunks to the lockup while you give them a lecture on temperance. Or if Thomas can't get you a job, he'll pass you along to our brother John, the noble barkeep in Meriden. He'll teach you the trade. You'll make a nice one, who'll never steal from the till or drink, and who'll tell customers they've had enough and better go home just when they're beginning to feel happy. She sighs regretfully. Oh, well, Mike, you was born a priest's pet, and there's no help for it. Mike, that's right. Make fun of me again because I want to be decent. Josie, you're worse than decent. You're virtuous. Mike, well, that's the thing nobody can say about. He stops, a bit ashamed, but mostly afraid to finish. Josie, amused. About me? No, and what's more, they don't. She smiles mockingly. I know what a trial it's been to you, Mike, having a sister who's the scandal of the neighborhood. Mike, it's you that's saying it, not me. I don't want to part with hard feelings, and I'll keep on praying for you. Josie, roughly. Ugh, to hell with your prayers. Mike, stiffly. I'm going. He picks up his bag. Josie, her manner softening. Wait. She comes to him. Don't mind my rough tongue, Mike. I'm sorry to see you go, but it's the best thing for you. That's why I'm helping you. The same as I helped Thomas and John. You can't stand up to the old man any more than Thomas or John could. And the old devil would always keep you a slave. I wish you all the luck in the world, Mike. I know you'll get on. And God bless you. Her voice has softened, and she blinks back tears. She kisses him, then fumbling in the pocket of her dress, pulls out a little roll of $1 bills and presses it in his hand. Here's a little present over your fare. I took it from his little green bag, and won't he be wild when he finds out? But I can handle him. Mike, enviously. You can. You're the only one. Gratefully moved for a second. Thank you, Josie. You've a kind heart. Then virtuously. But I don't like taking stolen money. Josie. Don't be a bigger jackass than you are already. Tell your conscience it's a bit of the wages he's never given you. Mike. That's true, Josie. It's rightfully mine. He shoves the money into his pocket. Josie. Get along now, so you won't miss the trolley. And don't forget to get off the train at Bridgeport. Give my love to Thomas and John. No, never mind. They've not written me in years. Give them a boot in the tail for me. Mike. That's nice talk for a woman. You've a tongue as dirty as the old man's. Josie, impatiently. Don't start preaching like you love to, or you'll never go. Mike. You're as bad as he is. Almost. It's his influence made you what you are, and him always scheming how he'll cheat people. Selling them a broken down nag or a sick cow or pig that he's doctored up to look good for a day or two. It's no better than stealing, and you help him. Josie. I do. Sure, it's grand fun. Mike. You ought to marry and have a home of your own away from this shanty and stop your shameless ways with men. He adds, not without moral satisfaction. Though it'd be hard to find a decent man who'd have you now. Josie. I don't want a decent man, thank you. They're no fun. They're all sticks like you. And I wouldn't marry the best man on earth and be tied down to him alone. Not even Jim Tyrone, I suppose. She stares at him. You'd like being tied to money. I know that. And he'll be rich when his mother's estate is settled. Sarcastically. I suppose you've never thought of that. Don't tell me. I've watched you making sheep's eyes at him. Josie, contemptuously. So I'm leading Jim on to propose, am I? Mike. I know it's crazy, but maybe you're hoping if you got a hold of him alone when he's mad drunk. Anyway, talk all you please to put me off. I'll bet my last penny you've cooked up some scheme to hook him. And the old man put you up to it. Maybe he thinks if he caught you with Jim and had witnesses to prove it and his shotgun to scare him. Josie, controlling her anger. You're full of bright thoughts. I wouldn't strain my brains anymore if I was you. Mike. Well, I wouldn't put it past the old man to try any trick. And I wouldn't put it past you, God forgive you. You've never cared about your virtue, or what man you went out with. You've always been brazen as brass and proud of your disgrace. You can't deny that, Josie. Josie. I don't. Then ominously. You'd better shut up now. I've been holding my temper because we're saying goodbye. She stands up. But I'm losing patience. Mike, hastily. Wait till I finish and you won't be mad at me. I was going to say, I wish you luck with your scheming for once. I hate Jim Tyrone's guts, with his quote in Latin and his high-toned Jesuit college education, putting on airs as if he was too good to wipe his shoes on me, when he's nothing but a drunken bum who never done a tap of work in his life, except acting on the stage while his father was alive to get him the jobs. Vindictively. I'll pray you'll find a way to nab him, Josie, and skin him out of his last nickel. Josie makes a threatening move toward him. One more word out of you. Then contemptuously. You're a dirty tick, and it'd serve you right if I let you stay gabbing until Father came and beat you to a jelly. But I won't. I'm too anxious to be rid of you. Roughly. Get out of here now. Do you think he'll stay all day with the pigs, you gabbing fool? She goes left to peer around the corner of the house with real alarm. There he is, coming up to the barn. Mike grabs the satchel, terrified. He slinks swiftly around the corner and disappears along the path to the wood's right rear. She keeps watching her father and does not notice Mike's departure. He's looking toward the meadow. He sees you're not working. He's running down there. He'll come here next. You better run for your life. She turns and sees he's gone contemptuously. She sees he's gone contemptuously. I might have known. I'll bet you're a mile away by now, you rabbit. She peeks around the corner again, with amused admiration. Look at my poor old father's pelt. He's as spry on his stumpy legs as a yearling, and as full of rage as a nest of wasps. She laughs and comes back to look along the path to the woods. Well, that's the last of you, Mike, and good riddance. It was the little boy you used to be that I had to mother, and not you. I stole the money for. This dismisses him. She sighs. Well, himself will be here in a minute. I better be ready. She reaches in her bedroom corner by the door and takes out a sawed-off broom handle. Not that I need it, but it saves his pride. She sits on the steps with the broom handle propped against the steps near her right hand. A moment later, her father, Phil Hogan, comes running up their left rear and charges around the corner of the house, his arms pumping up and down, his fists clenched, his face full of fighting fury. Hogan is 55, about 5'6". He has a thick neck, lumpy, sloping shoulders, a barrel-like trunk, stumpy legs, and big feet. His arms are short and muscular, with large, hairy hands. His head is round with thinning, sandy hair. His face is fat, with a snub nose, long upper lip, big mouth, and little blue eyes with bleached lashes and eyebrows that remind one of a white pig's. He wears heavy brogans, filthy overalls, and a dirty short-sleeved undershirt. Arms and face are sunburned and freckled. On his head is an old wide-brimmed hat of coarse straw that would look more becoming on a horse. His voice is high-pitched with a pronounced brogue. Hogan stops as he turns the corner and sees her, furiously. Where is he? Is he hiding in the house? I'll wipe the floors with him, the lazy bastard. Turning his anger against her. Haven't you a tongue in your head, you great slut, you? Josie with provoking calm. Don't be calling me names, you bad-tempered old hornet, or maybe I'll lose my temper too. Hogan. To hell with your temper, you overgrown cow. Josie. I'd rather be a cow than an ugly little buck goat. You better sit down and cool off. Old men shouldn't run around raging in the noon sun, you'll get sunstroke. Hogan. To hell with sunstroke. Have you seen him? Josie. Have I seen who? Hogan. Mike. Who else would I be after, the Pope? He was in the meadow, but the minute I turned my back, he sneaked off. He sees the pitchfork. There's his pitchfork. Will you stop your lying? Josie. I haven't said I didn't see him. Hogan. Then don't try to help him hide from me, or where is he? Josie. Where you'll never find him. Hogan. We'll soon see. I'll bet he's in your room under the bed, the cowardly lump. He moves toward the steps. Josie. He's not. He's gone, like Thomas and John before him, to escape your slave driving. Hogan stares at her incredulously. You mean he's run off to make his own way in the world? Josie. He has? So make up your mind to it and sit down. Hogan, baffled, sits on the boulder and takes off his hat to scratch his head, with a faint trace of grudging respect. I'd never dream he had that much spunk. His temper rising again. And I know damned well he hadn't. Not without you to give him the guts and help him, like the great soft fool you are. Josie. Now don't start raging again, Father. Hogan, seething. You've stolen my satchel to give him, I suppose. Like you did before for Thomas and John? Josie. It was my satchel too. Didn't I help you in the trade for the horse? When you got the Crawleys to throw in the satchel for good measure? I was up all night fixing that nag's forelegs so his knees wouldn't buckle together till after the Crowleys had him a day or two. Hogan forgets his anger to grin reminiscently. You've a wonderful way with animals. God bless you. And do you remember the two Crowleys came back to give me a beating and I licked them both? Josie, with calculating flattery. You did. You're a wonderful fighter. Sure, you could give Jack Dempsey himself a run for his money. Hogan, with sharp suspicion. I could, but don't try to change the subject and fill me with blarney. Josie, all right, I'll tell the truth then. They were getting the best of you till I ran out and knocked one of them tail over tin cup against the pig pen. Hogan, outraged. You're a liar. They was begging for mercy before you came. Furiously. You thief, you. You stole my fine satchel for that lump. And I'll bet that's not all. I'll bet, like when Thomas and John sneaked off, He rises from the boulder threateningly. Listen, Josie. You found where I hid my little green bag and stole my money to give to that lousy altar boy. Josie rises from the steps with a broom handle in her right hand. Well, I did. So now what'll you do? Don't be threatening me. You know I'll beat better sense in your skull if you lay a finger on me. Hogan. I never yet laid hands on a woman. Not when I was sober. But if it wasn't for that club, bitterly. A fine curse God put on me when he gave me a daughter as big and strong as a bull, and as vicious and disrespectful. Suddenly his eyes twinkle and he grins admiringly. Begod, look at you standing there with the club. If you ain't the damnedest daughter in Connecticut, who is? He chuckles and sits on the boulder again. Josie laughs and sits on the steps, putting the club away. And if you ain't the damnedest father in Connecticut, who is? Hogan takes a clay pipe and a plug of tobacco and a knife from his pocket. He cuts the plug and stuffs his pipe without rancor. How much did you steal, Josie? Josie. $6 only. Hogan. Only? Well, God grant someone with wits will see that dopey gander at the depot and sell him the railroad for the 6. Grumbling. It isn't the money I mind, Josie. Josie. I know. Sure, what do you care for money? You'd give your last penny to the first beggar you met. If he had a shotgun pointed at your heart. Hogan. Don't be teasing. You know what I mean. It's the thought of that pious lump having my money that maddens me. I wouldn't put it past him to drop it in the collection plate next Sunday. He's that big a jackass. Josie. I knew when you'd calm down you'd think it worth $6 to see the last of him. Hogan finishes filling his pipe. Well, maybe I do. To tell the truth, I never liked him. He strikes a match on the seat of his overalls and lights his pipe. And I never liked Thomas and John either. Josie, amused. You've the same bad luck in sons I have in brothers. Hogan puffs ruminatively. They all take after your mother's family. She was the only one in it had spirit, God rest her soul. The rest of them was a pious lousy lot. They wouldn't dare put food in their mouths before they said grace for it. They was too busy preaching temperance to have time for a drink. They spent so much time confessing their sins they had no chance to do any sinning. He spits disgustedly. Scum of the earth. Thank God you're like me and your mother. Josie. I don't know if I should thank God for being like you. Sure, everyone says you're a wicked old tick as crooked as a corkscrew. Hogan. I know. They're an envious lot, God forgive them. They both chuckle. He pulls on his pipe reflectively. You didn't get much thanks from Mike, I'll wager, for your help. Josie. Oh, he thanked me kindly, and then he started to preach about my sins. And yours. Hogan. Oh, did he? Exploding. For the love of God, why didn't you hold him until I could give him one good kick for a father's parting blessing? Josie. I near gave him one myself. Hogan. When I think your poor mother was killed bringing that crummy calf into life. Vindictively. I've never set foot in a church since, and never will. A pause. He speaks with a surprising, sad gentleness. A sweet woman. Do you remember her, Josie? You were only a little thing when she died. Josie. I remember her well, with a teasing smile which is half sad. She was the one could put you in your place when you'd come home drunk and want to tear down the house for the fun of it. Hogan, with admiring appreciation. Yes, she could do it. God bless her. I only raised my hand for her once, just a slap because she told me to stop singing. It was after daylight. The next moment I was on the floor thinking a mule had kicked me. He chuckles. Since you've grown up, I've had the same trouble. There's no liberty in my own home. Josie. That's lucky, or there wouldn't be any home. Hogan, after a pause of puffing on his pipe. What did that donkey Mike preach to you about? Josie. Oh, the same as ever. That I'm the scandal of the countryside, carrying on with men without a marriage license. Hogan gives her a strange, embarrassed glance and then looks away. He does not look at her during the following dialogue. His manner is casual. Hell roast his soul for saying it, but it's true enough. Josie, defiantly. It is. And what of it? I don't care a damn for the scandal. Hogan. No. You do as you please, everyone. Josie. Yes. And that goes for you too if you are my father, so don't you start preaching, too. Hogan. Me? Preach? Sure, the devil would die laughing. Don't bring me into it. I learned long since to let you go your own way because there's no controlling you. Josie. I do my work, and I earn my keep, and I have a right to be free. Hogan. You have? I've never denied it. Josie. No, you've never. I've often wondered why a man that likes fights as much as you didn't grab at the excuse of my disgrace to beat the lights out of the men. Hogan. Wouldn't I look a great fool when everyone knows any man who tried to make free with you and you not willing would be carried off to the hospital? Anyway, I wouldn't want to fight an army. You've had too many sweethearts. Josie, with a proud toss of her head, boastfully. That's because I soon get tired of any man and give him his walking papers. Hogan, I'm afraid you were born to be a terrible wanton woman. But to tell the truth, I'm well satisfied you're what you are. Though I shouldn't say it, because if you was the decent kind, you'd have married some fool long ago, and I'd have lost your company and your help on the farm. Josie, with a trace of bitterness. Leave it to you to think of your own interest. Hogan puffs on his pipe. What else did my beautiful son Mike say to you? Josie. Oh, he was full of stupid gab, as usual. He gave me good advice. Hogan, grimly. That was kind of him. It must have been good. Josie. I ought to marry and settle down. If I could find a decent man who'd have me, which he was sure I couldn't. Hogan, beginning to boil. I tell you, Josie, it's going to be the saddest memory of my life I didn't get one last swipe at him. Josie. So the only hope, he thought, was for me to catch some indecent man who'd have enough money coming to him I could steal. Hogan gives her a quick, probing side glance, casually. He meant Jim Tyrone? Josie. He did? And the dirty tick accused you and me of making up a foxy scheme to trap Jim. I'm to get him alone when he's crazy drunk and to lead him on to marry me. She adds in a hard, scornful tone, as if that would ever work. Sure, all the pretty little tarts on Broadway, New York, must have had a try at that, and much good it did them. Hogan, again with a quick side glance, casually. They must have, surely. But that's in the city where he's suspicious. You never can tell what he mightn't do here in the country, where he's innocent, with a moon in the sky to fill him with poetry and a quart of bad hooch inside of him. Josie turns on him angrily. Are you taking Mike's scheme seriously, you old goat? Hogan, I'm not. I only thought you wanted my opinion. She regards him suspiciously, but his face is blank, as if he hadn't a thought beyond enjoying his pipe. Josie, turning away. And if that didn't work, Mike said maybe we had a scheme that I'd get Jim in bed with me and you'd come with witnesses and a shotgun and catch him there. Hogan. Faith, me darling son, never learned that from his prayer book. He must have improved his mind on the sly. Josie. The dirty tick? Hogan. Don't call him a tick. I don't like ticks, but I'll say this for them. I never picked one off me yet was a hypocrite. Josie. Him daring to accuse us of planning a rotten trick like that on Jim. Hogan. As if he misunderstood her meaning. Yes, it's as old as the hills. Everyone's heard of it. But it still works now and again, I'm told, and sometimes an old trick is best because it's so ancient no one would suspect you'd try it. Josie, staring at him resentfully. That's enough out of you, Father. I never can tell to this day when you put that dead mug on me whether you're joking or not. But I don't want to hear any more. Hogan, mildly. I thought you wanted my honest opinion on the merits of Mike's suggestion. Josie. Oh, shut up, will you? I know you're only trying to make a game of me. You like Jim, and you'd never play a dirty trick on him, not even if I was willing. Hogan. No, not unless I found he was playing one on me. Josie. Which he'd never. Hogan. No, I wouldn't think of it. But my motto in life is never trust anyone too far. Not even myself. Josie. You've reason for the last. I've often suspected you sneak out of bed in the night to pick your own pockets. Hogan. I wouldn't call it a dirty trick on him to get you for a wife. Josie. Exasperatedly. God save us, are you off on that again? Hogan. Well, you put marriage in my head and I can't help considering the merits of the case, as they say. Sure, you're two of a kind, both great disgraces. That would help make a happy marriage because neither of you could look down on the other. Josie. Jim mightn't think so. Hogan. You mean he'd think he was marrying beneath his station? He'd be a damned fool if he had that notion, for his old man, who'd worked up from nothing to be rich and famous, didn't give a damn about station. Didn't I often see him working on his grounds in clothes I wouldn't put on a scarecrow, not caring who saw him? With admiring affection. God rest him, he was a true Irish gentleman. Josie. He was. And didn't you swindle him and make me help you at... I remember when I was a slip of a girl and you'd get a letter saying his agent told him you were a year behind in the rent. And he'd be damned if he'd stand for it. And he was coming here to settle the matter. You'd make me dress up with my hair brushed and a ribbon in it and leave me to soften his heart before he saw you. So I'd skip down the path to meet him and make him a curtsy and hold on to his hand and bat my eyes at him and lead him in the house and offer him a drink of the good whiskey you didn't keep for company and gape at him and tell him he was the handsomest man in the world. And the fierce expression he'd put on for you, would go away. Hogan chuckles. You did it wonderful. You should have got on the stage. Josie, dryly. Yes, that's what he'd tell me. And he'd reach in his pocket and take out $50 and ask me if you hadn't put me up to it. So I'd say, yes, you had. Hogan, sadly. I never knew you were such a black traitor, and you only a child. Josie. And then you'd come, and before he could get a word out of him, you'd tell him you'd vacate the premises unless he lowered the rent and painted the house. Hogan. Begod, that used to stop him in his tracks. Josie. It didn't stop him from saying you were the damnedest crook ever came out of Ireland. Hogan. He said it with admiration. And we'd start drinking and telling stories and singing songs. And by the time he left, we were both too busy cursing England to worry over the rent. He grins affectionately. Oh, he was a great man entirely. Josie. He was. He always saw through your tricks. Hogan. Didn't I know he would? Sure, all I wanted was to give him the fun of seeing through them so he couldn't be hard-hearted. That was the real trick. Josie stares at him. You old devil. You've always a trick hidden behind your tricks, so no one can tell at times what you're after. Hogan. Don't be so suspicious. Sure, I'd never try to fool you. You know me too well. But we've gone off the track. It's Jim we're discussing, not his father. I was telling you I could see the merit in your marrying him. Josie, exasperatedly. Ugh, a cow must have kicked you in the head this morning. Hogan. I'd never give it a thought if I didn't know you had a soft spot in your heart for him. Josie, resentfully. Well, I haven't. I like him, if that's what you mean, but it's only to talk to. Because he's educated and quiet-spoken and has politeness even when he's drunkest, and doesn't roar around cursing and singing like some I could name. Hogan. If you could see the light in your eyes when he blarneys you. Josie, roughly. The light in me foot. Scornfully. I'm in love with him, you'll be saying next. Hogan ignores this. And another merit of the case is he likes you. Josie. Because he keeps dropping in here lately? Sure, it's only when he gets sick of the drunks at the inn, and it's more to joke with you than see me. Hogan. It's your happiness I'm considering when I recommend you're using your wits to catch him if you can. Josie, jeeringly. If. Hogan. Who knows? With all the sweethearts you've had, you must have a catching way with men. Josie, boastfully. Maybe I have, but that doesn't mean, Hogan. If you got him alone tonight, there will be a beautiful moon to fill him with poetry and loneliness and... Josie. That's one of Mike's dirty schemes. Hogan. Mike be damned. Sure, that's every woman's scheme since the world was created. Without it, there'd be no population. Persuasively. There'd be no harm in trying it anyway. Josie. And no use either. Bitterly. Ugh, Father, don't play the jackass with me. You know and I know I'm an ugly, overgrown lump of a woman, and the men that want me are no better than stupid bulls. Jim can have all the pretty painted little Broadway girls he wants, and dancers on the stage too, when he comes into his estate. That's the kind he likes. Hogan. I notice he's never married one. Maybe he'd like a fine, strong, handsome figure of a woman for a change, with beautiful eyes and hair and teeth and a smile. Josie, pleased but jeering. Thank you kindly for your compliments. Now I know a cow kicked you in the head. Hogan, if you think Jim hasn't been taking in your fine points, you're a fool. Josie, you mean you've noticed him? Suddenly furious. Stop your lying. Hogan, don't fly in a temper. All I'm saying is there may be a chance in it to better yourself. Josie, scornfully. Better myself by being tied down to a man who's drunk every night of his life? No, thank you. Hogan. Sure, you're strong enough to reform him. A taste of that club you've got when he came home to you paralyzed, and in a few weeks you'd have him a dirty prohibitionist. Josie, seriously. It's true. If I was his wife, I'd cure him of drinking himself to death. If I kill him. Then angrily. I'm sick of your crazy gab, Father. Leave me alone. Hogan. Well, let's put it another way. Don't tell me you couldn't learn to love the estate he'll come into. Josie, resentfully. Nah, I've been waiting for that. That's what Mike said. Again. Now we've come to the truth behind all your blather of my liking him or him liking me. Her manner changing. Defiantly. All right, then. Of course I'd love the money. Who wouldn't? And why shouldn't I get my hands on it if I could? He's bound to be swindled out of it anyway. He'll go back to the Broadway he thinks is heaven, and by the time the pretty little tarts and the barroom sponges and racetrack touts and gamblers are through with him, he'll be picked clean. I'm no saint, God knows, but I'm decent and deserving compared to those scum. Hogan, eagerly. Begod, now you're using your wits. And where there's a will, there's a way. You and me have never been beat when we put our brains together. I'll keep thinking it over, and you do the same. Josie, with illogical anger. Well, I won't. And you keep your mad scheming to yourself. I won't listen to it. Hogan, as if he were angry too. All right, the devil take you. It's all you'll hear from me. He pauses. Then, with great seriousness, turning toward her. Except one thing. As she starts to shut him up sharply. I'm serious, and you better listen because it's about this farm, which is home to us. Josie, surprised, stares at him. What about the farm? Hogan. Don't forget, if we have lived on it 20 years, we're only tenants, and we can be thrown out on our necks at any time. Quickly. Mind you, I don't say Jim would ever do it, rent or no rent, or let the executors do it, even if they wanted, which they don't, knowing they'd never find another tenant. Josie. What's worrying you then? Hogan. This. I've been afraid lately the minute the estate is out of probate, Jim will sell the farm. Josie. Exasperatedly. Of course he will. Hasn't he told us and promised you can buy it on easy time payments at the small price you offered? Hogan. Jim promises whatever you like when he's full of whiskey. He might forget a promise as easy when he's drunk enough. Josie, indignantly. He'd never. And who'd want it except us? No one ever has in all the years. Hogan. Someone has lately. The agent got an offer last month. Jim told me. Bigger than mine. Josie. Oh, Jim loves to try and get your goat. He was kidding you. Hogan. He wasn't. I can tell. He said he told the agent to tell whoever it was the place wasn't for sale. Josie. Of course he did. Did he say who'd made the offer? Hogan. He didn't know. It came through a real estate man who wouldn't tell who his client was. I've been trying to guess, but I can't think of anyone crazy enough unless it'd be the same damn fool of a millionaire buying up land to make a great estate for himself. Like our beautiful neighbor. Harder. The Standard Oil thief did years ago. He adds with bitter fervency. May he roast in hell, and his limey superintendent with him. Josie. Amen to that. Then scornfully. This land for an estate? And if there was an offer, Jim's refused it, and that ends it. He wouldn't listen to any offer after he's given us his word to us. Hogan. Did I say he would? When he's in his right mind? What I'm afraid of is he might be led into it. He might be led into it sometime when he has one of his sneering, bitter drunks on and talks like a Broadway crook himself, saying money is the only thing in the world and everything and anyone can be bought if the price is big enough. You've heard him. Josie. I have. But he doesn't fool me at all. He only acts like he's hard and shameless to get back at life when it's tormenting him. And who doesn't? He gives her a quick, curious side glance, which she doesn't notice. Hogan. Or take the other kind of queer drunk he gets on sometimes, when, without any reason you can see, he'll suddenly turn strange, and look sad and stare at nothing as if he was mourning over some ghost inside him. And Josie. I think I know what comes over him when he's like that. It's the memory of his mother comes back, and his grief for her death. Pityingly. Poor Jim. Hogan, ignoring this. And whiskey seems to have no effect on him. Like water off a duck's back. He'll keep acting natural enough and you'd swear he wasn't bad at all. But the next day you find his brain was so paralyzed he don't remember a thing until you remind him. He's done a lot of mad things when he was that way. He was sorry for after. Josie, scornfully. What drunk hasn't? But he'd never, resentfully. I won't have you suspecting Jim without any cause, do you hear me? Hogan. I don't suspect him. All I've said is, When a man gets as queer drunk as Jim, he doesn't know himself what he mightn't do. And we'd be damned fools if we didn't fear the possibility, however small it is, and do all we can to guard against it. Josie. There's no possibility. And how could we guard against it if there was? Hogan. Well, you can put yourself out to be extra nice to him, for one thing. Josie. How nice is extra nice? Hogan. You ought to know. But here's one tip. I've noticed when you talk rough and brazen like you do to other men, he may grin like they do, as if he enjoyed it, but he don't. So watch your tongue. Josie, with a defiant toss of her head. I'll talk as I please, and if he don't like it, he can lump it. Scornfully. I'm to pretend I'm a pure virgin, I suppose. That would fool him, wouldn't it? And him hearing all about me from the men at the inn. She gets to her feet, abruptly changing the subject. We're wasting the day blathering. Then her face hardening. If he ever went back on his word, no matter how drunk he was, I'd be with you in any scheme you made against him, no matter how dirty. Hastily. But it's all your nonsense. I'd never believe it. She comes and picks up the pitchfork. I'll go to the meadow and finish Mike's work. You needn't fear you'll miss his help on the farm. Hogan. A hell of a help. A weak, lazy back, and the appetite of a drove of starving pigs. As she turns to go, suddenly bellicose. Leaving me, are ya? When it's dinner time? Where's my dinner, you lazy cow? Josie. There's stew on the stove, you bad-tempered runt. Go in and help yourself. I'm not hungry. Your gab has bothered my mind. I need hard work in the sun to clear it. She starts to go off toward rear right. Hogan, glancing down the road off left front. You'd better wait. There's a caller coming to the gate, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the light of your eyes himself. Josie, angrily. Shut up! She stares off. Her face softens and grows pitying. Look at him when he thinks no one is watching, with his eyes on the ground, like a dead man walking slowly behind his own coffin. Then roughly. Faith, he must have a hangover. He sees us now. Look at the bluff he puts up, straightening himself and grinning resentfully. I don't want to meet him. Let him make jokes with you and play the old game about a drink you both think is such fun. That's all he comes for anyway. She starts off again. Hogan, are you running away from him? Sure, you must be afraid you're in love. Josie halts instantly and turns back defiantly. He goes on. Go in the house now and wash your face and tidy your dress and give a touch to your hair. You want to look decent for him. Josie, angrily. I'll go in the house, but only to see the stew ain't burned, for I suppose you'll have the foxiness to ask him to have a bite to eat to keep in his good graces. Hogan. Why shouldn't I ask him? I know damned well he has no appetite this early in the day, but only a thirst. Josie. Oh, you make me sick, you sly miser. She goes in through her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. Hogan refills his pipe, pretending he doesn't notice Tyrone approaching, his eyes bright with droll expectation. Jim Tyrone enters along the road from the highway, left. Tyrone is in his early 40s, around 5'9", broad-shouldered and deep-chested. His naturally fine physique has become soft and soggy from dissipation, but his face is still good-looking despite its unhealthy puffiness and the bags under his eyes. He has thinning dark hair, parted and brushed back to cover a bald spot. His eyes are brown, the whites congested and yellowish. His nose, big and aquiline, gives his face a certain Mephistophelian quality, which is accentuated by his habitually cynical expression. But when he smiles without sneering, he still has the ghost of a former youthful, irresponsible Irish charm. That of the beguiling ne'er-do-well, sentimental and romantic. It is his humor and charm which have kept him attractive to women and popular with men as a drinking companion. He is dressed in an expensive dark brown suit, tight-fitting and drawn in at the dark brown made-to-order shoes and silk socks, a white silk shirt, silk handkerchief in breast pocket, a dark tie. This getup suggests that he follows a style set by well-groomed Broadway gamblers who would like to be mistaken for Wall Street brokers. He has had enough pick-me-ups to recover from morning after nausea and steady his nerves. During the following dialogue, he and Hogan are like players in an old familiar game where each knows the other's moves, but which still amuses them. Tyrone approaches and stands regarding Hogan with sardonic relish. Hogan scratches a match on the seat of his overalls and lights his pipe, pretending not to see him. Tyrone recites with feeling, Fortunat senex ergo tua rura manebunt, et tibi magna satis, quambus lapis omnia nudus. Hogan mutters, It's the landlord again, and my shotgun not handy. He looks up at Tyrone. Is it mass you're saying, Jim? That was Latin. I know it by ear. What the hell? Insult does it mean? Tyrone. Translated very freely into Irish English, something like this. He imitates Hogan's brogue. Ain't you the lucky old bastard to have this beautiful farm if it is full of nude rocks? Hogan. I like that part about the rocks. If cows could eat them, this place would make a grand dairy farm. He spits. It's easy to see you've a fine college education. It must be a big help to you conversing with whores and barkeeps. Tyrone. Yes, a very valuable worldly asset. I was once offered a job as office boy, until they discovered I wasn't qualified because I had no Bachelor of Arts diploma. There had been a slight misunderstanding just before I was to graduate. Hogan. Between you and the fathers, I'll wager. Tyrone. I made a bet with another senior I could get a tart from the Haymarket to visit me, introduce her to the Jebs as my sister, and get away with it. Hogan. But you didn't? Tyrone. Almost. It was a memorable day in the halls of learning. All the students were wise, and I had them rolling in the aisles as I showed sister around the grounds, accompanied by one of the Jebs. He was a bit suspicious at first, but Dutch Maisie, her professional name, had no makeup on and was dressed in black, and had eaten a pound of sensen to kill the gin on her breath, and seemed such a devout girl that he forgot his suspicions. He pauses. Yes, all would have been well. But she was a mischievous minx and had her own ideas of improving on my joke. When she was saying goodbye to Father Fuller, she added innocently, Christ, Father, it's nice and quiet out here away from the damned 6th Avenue L. I wish to hell I could stay here. Dryly. But she didn't, and neither did I. Hogan chuckles delightedly. I'll betcha she didn't. God bless Dutch Maisie. I'd like to have known her. Tyrone sits down on the steps with a change of manner. Well, how's the Duke of Donegal this fine day? Hogan. Never better? Tyrone. Slaving and toiling as usual, I see. Hogan. Hasn't a poor man a right to do his noon rest without being sneered at by his rich landlord? Tyrone. Rich is good. I would be if you'd pay up your back rent. Hogan. You ought to pay me instead for occupying this rock pile miscalled a farm. His eyes twinkling. But I have fine reports to give you of a promising harvest. The milkweed and the thistles is in thriving condition, and I never saw the poison ivy so bounteous and beautiful. Tyrone laughs. Without their noticing, Josie appears in the doorway behind Tyrone. She has tidied up and arranged her hair. She smiles down at Jim, her face softening, pleased to hear him laugh. Tyrone. You win. Where did Josie go, Phil? I saw her here. Hogan. She ran in the house to make herself beautiful for you. Josie breaks in roughly. You're a liar. To Tyrone, her manner one of bold, free, and easy familiarity. Hello, Jim. Tyrone starts to stand up. Hello, Josie. Josie puts a hand on his shoulder and pushes him down. Don't get up. Sure, you know I'm no lady. She sits on the top step, banteringly. How's my fine Jim this beautiful day? You don't look so bad. You must have stopped at the inn for an eye opener, or 10 of them. Tyrone. I felt worse. He looks up at her sardonically. And how's my Virgin Queen of Ireland? Josie. Yours, is it? Since when? And don't be miscalling me a virgin. You'll ruin my reputation if you spread that lie about me. She laughs. Tyrone is staring at her. She goes on quickly. How is it you're around so early? I thought you never got up till afternoon. Tyrone. Couldn't sleep. One of those heebie-jeebie nights when the booze keeps you awake instead of... He catches her, giving him a pitying look, irritably. But what of it? Josie. Maybe you had no woman in bed with you, for a change. It's a terrible thing to break the habit of years. Tyrone shrugs his shoulders. Maybe. Josie. What's the matter with the tarts in town? They let you do it? I'll bet the ones you know on Broadway, New York, wouldn't neglect their business. Tyrone pretends to yawn boredly. Maybe not. Then irritably. Cut out the kidding, Josie. It's too early. Hogan, who has been taking everything in without seeming to. I told you not to annoy the gentleman with your rough tongue. Josie. Sure, I thought I was doing my duty as hostess, making him feel at home. Tyrone stares at her again. Why all the interest lately in the ladies of the profession, Josie? Josie. Oh, I've been considering joining their union. It's easier than living than farming, I'm sure. Then resentfully. You think I'd starve at it, don't you? Because your fancy is for the dainty dolls of women. But other men like... Tyrone, with sudden revulsion. For God's sake, cut out that kind of talk, Josie. It sounds like hell. Josie stares at him startledly, then resentfully. Oh, it does it? Forcing a scornful smile. I'm shocking you, I suppose. Hogan is watching them both, not missing anything in their faces, while he seems intent on his pipe. Tyrone, looking a bit sheepish and annoyed at himself for his interest, shrugs his shoulders. No, hardly. Forget it. He smiles kiddingly. Anyway, who told you I fall for the dainty dolls? That's all a thing of the past. I like them tall and strong and voluptuous now, with big, beautiful breasts. She blushes and looks confused and is furious with herself for doing so. Hogan. There you are, Josie, darling. Sure he couldn't speak fairer than that. Josie recovers herself. He couldn't indeed. She pats Tyrone's head, playfully. You're a terrible blarneying liar, Jim, but thank you just the same. Tyrone turns his attention to Hogan. He winks at Josie and begins in an exaggeratedly casual manner. Tyrone. I don't blame you, Mr. Hogan, for taking it easy on such a blazing hot day. Hogan doesn't look at him. His eyes twinkle. Hot, did you say? I find it cool myself. Take off your coat if you're hot, Mr. Tyrone. Tyrone. One of the most stifling days I'd ever known, isn't it, Josie? Josie, smiling. Terrible. I know you must be perishing. Hogan. I wouldn't call it a damn bit stifling. Tyrone. It parches the membranes in your throat. Hogan. The what? Never mind. I can't have them, for my throat isn't parched at all. If yours is, Mr. Tyrone, there's a well full of water at the back. Tyrone. Water? That's something people wash with, isn't it? I mean, some people. Hogan. So I've heard. But like you, I find it hard to believe. It's a dirty habit. They must be foreigners. Tyrone. As I was saying, my throat is parched after the long, dusty walk I took just for the pleasure of being your guest. Hogan. I don't remember inviting you, And the road is hard macadam with a devil a speck of dust. And it's less than a quarter of a mile from the inn here. Tyrone. I didn't have a drink at the inn. I was waiting until I arrived here and knowing that you'd... Hogan. Knowing I'd what? Tyrone. Your reputation as a generous host. Hogan. The world must be full of liars. So you didn't have a drink at the inn. Then it must be the air itself smells of whiskey today. Although I didn't notice it before you came. You've gone on the water wagon, I suppose. Well, that's fine. And I ask pardon for misjudging you. Tyrone. I wanted to go on the wagon for the past 25 years, but the doctors have strictly forbidden it. It would be fatal with my weak heart. Hogan. So you have a weak heart. Well, and me thinking all along it was your head. I'm glad you told me. I was just going to offer you a drink, but whiskey is the worst thing. Tyrone. The docs say it's a matter of life and death. I must have a stimulant. One big drink at least whenever I strain my heart walking in the hot sun. Hogan. Walk back to the inn, then, and give it a good strain so you can buy yourself 2 big drinks. Josie, laughing. Ain't you the fools playing that old game between you, and both of you pleased as punch? Tyrone gives up with a laugh. Hasn't he ever been known to loosen up, Josie? Josie, you ought to know. If you need a drink, you'll have to buy it from him or die of thirst. Tyrone, well, I'll bet this is one time he's going to treat. Hogan, begod, I'll take that bet. Tyrone, after you've heard the news I've got for you, you'll be so delighted you won't be able to drag out the old bottle quick enough. Hogan, I'll have to be insanely delighted. Josie, full of curiosity. Shut up, father. What news, Jim? Tyrone, I have it off the grapevine that a certain exalted personage will drop in on you before long. Hogan, it's the sheriff again. I know by the pleased look on your mug. Tyrone, not this time. He pauses tantalizingly. Josie, bad luck to you. Can't you tell us who? Tyrone, a more eminent grafter than the sheriff. Sneeringly. A leading aristocrat in our land of the free and get rich quick, whose boots are licked by one and all, one of the kings of our republic by divine right of inherited swag. In short, I refer to your good neighbor, T. Stedman Harder, Standard Oil's sappiest child, whom I know you both love so dearly. There was a pause after this announcement. Hogan and Josie stiffen, and their eyes begin to glitter, but they can't believe their luck at first. Hogan, in an ominous whisper, did you say Harder is coming to call on us, Jim? Josie, it's too good to be true. Tyrone, watching them with amusement, no kidding. The great Mr. Harder intends to stop here on his way back to lunch from a horseback ride. Josie, how do you know? Tyrone, Simpson told me. I ran into him at the inn. Hogan, that English scum of a superintendent? Tyrone, he was laughing himself sick. He said he suggested the idea to Harder, told him you'd be overwhelmed with awe if he deigned to interview you in person. Hogan, overwhelmed isn't the word, is it, Josie? Josie, it isn't indeed, father. Tyrone, for once in his life, Simpson is cheering for you. He doesn't like his boss. In fact, he asked me to tell you he hopes you kill him. Hogan, disdainfully. To hell with the Limey's good wishes. I'd like both of them to call together. Josie. Well, we can't have everything. To Tyrone. What's the reason Mr. Harder decided to notice poor, humble scum the like of us? Tyrone, grinning. That's right, Josie. Be humble. He'll expect you to know your place. Hogan. Will he now? Well, with a great happy sigh. This is going to be a beautiful day entirely. Josie. But what's Harder's reason, Jim? Tyrone. Well, it seems he has an ice pond on his estate. Hogan. Oh, so that's it. Tyrone. Yes, that's it. Harder likes to keep up the good old manorial customs. He clings to his ice pond. And your pig pen isn't far from his ice pond. Hogan. A nice little stroll for the pigs, that's all. Tyrone. And somehow Harder's fence in that vicinity has a habit of breaking down. Hogan. Fences are queer things. You can't depend on them. Tyrone. Simpson says he's had it repaired a dozen times, but each time on the following night it gets broken down again. Josie. What a strange thing. It must be the bad fairies. I can't imagine who else could have done it, can you, Father? Hogan. I can't, surely. Tyrone. Well, Simpson can. He knows you did it, and he told his master so. Hogan, disdainfully. Master is the word. Sure, the English can't live unless they have a lord's backside to kiss, the dirty slaves. Tyrone. The result of those breaks in the fence is that your pigs stroll, as you so gracefully put it, stroll through to wallow happily along the shores of the ice pond. Hogan. Well, why not? Sure, they're fine, ambitious American-born pigs, and they don't miss any opportunities. They're like Harder's father, who made the money for him. Tyrone. I agree. But for some strange reason, Harder doesn't look forward to the taste of pig in next summer's ice water. Hogan. He must be delicate. Remember, he's delicate, Josie, and leave your club in the house. He burst into joyful, menacing laughter. Oh, be God and be Christ in the mountains. I've pined to have a quiet word with Mr. Harder for years. Watching him ride past in his big, shiny automobile with his snoot in the air, and being tormented always by the complaints of his limey superintendent. Won't I welcome him? Josie. Won't we, you mean? Sure, I love him as much as you. Hogan. I'd kiss you, Jim, for this beautiful news if you wasn't so damned ugly. Maybe Josie will do it for me. She has a stronger stomach. Josie. I will. He's earned it. She pulls Tyrone's head back and laughingly kisses him on the lips. Her expression changes. She looks startled and confused, stirred and at the same time frightened. She forces a scornful laugh. Ugh, there's no spirit in you. It's like kissing a corpse. Tyrone gives her a strange, surprised look. Mockingly. Yes? Turning to Hogan. Well, how about that drink, Phil? I'll leave it to Josie if drinks aren't on the house. Hogan. I won't leave it to Josie. She's prejudiced, being in love. Josie. Angrily. Shut up, you old liar. Then guiltily, forcing a laugh. Don't talk nonsense to sneak out of treating Jim. Hogan, sighing. All right, Josie, go get the bottle in one small glass or he'll never stop nagging me. I can turn my back so the sight of him drinking free won't break my heart. Josie gets up, laughing, and goes in the house. Hogan peers at the road off left. On his way back to lunch, you said? Then it's time, fervently. Oh, holy Joseph, don't let the bastard change his mind. Tyrone, beginning to have qualms. Listen, Phil, don't get too enthusiastic. He has a big around here, and he'll have you pinched sure as hell if you beat him up. Hogan, ugh, I'm no fool. Josie comes out with a bottle and a tumbler. Will you listen to this, Josie? He's warning me not to give Harder a beating, as if I'd dirty my hands on the scum. Josie, as if we'd need to. Sure, all we want is a quiet chat with him. Hogan, that's all, as neighbor to neighbor. Josie hands Tyrone the bottle and tumbler. Here you are, Jim, don't stint yourself. Hogan, mournfully. A fine daughter. I tell you a small glass and you give him a bucket. As Tyrone pours a big drink, grinning at him, he turns away with a comic shudder. That's a $50 drink at least. Tyrone. Here's luck, Phil. Hogan. I hope you drown. Tyrone drinks and makes a wry face. Tyrone. The best chicken medicine I have ever tasted. Hogan. That's gratitude for you. Here, pass me the bottle. A drink will warm up my welcome for His Majesty. He takes an enormous swig from the bottle. Josie, looking off left. There's 2 horseback riders on the county road now. Hogan. Praise be to God, it's him and a groom. He sets the bottle on top of the boulder. Josie. That's McCabe, an old sweetheart of mine. She glances at Tyrone provokingly, then suddenly worried and protective. You get in the house, Jim. If Harder sees you here, he'll lay the whole blame on you. Tyrone. Nix, Josie. You don't think I'm going to miss this, do you? Josie. You can sit inside by my window and take in everything. Come on now, don't be stubborn with me. She puts her hands under his arms and lifts him to his feet as easily as if he was a child. And banteringly, go into my beautiful bedroom, it's a nice place for you. Tyrone, kiddingly. Just what I've been thinking for some time now, Josie. Josie, boldly. Sure, you've never given me a sign of it. Come up tonight and we'll spoon in the moonlight and you can tell me your thoughts. Tyrone. That's a date. Remember now. Josie. It's you who'll forget. Get inside now before it's too late. She gives him a shove inside and closes the door. Hogan has been watching the visitor approach. He's dismounting, as graceful as a scarecrow, and his poor horse longing to give him a kick. Look at Mac grinning at us. Sit down, Josie. She sits on the steps, he on the boulder. Pretend you don't notice him. T. Stedman Harder appears at left. They act as if they didn't see him. Hogan knocks out his pipe on the palm of his hand. Harder is in his late 30s but looks younger because his face is unmarked by worry, ambition, or any of the common hazards of life. No matter how long he lives, his 4 undergraduate years will always be for him the most significant in his life, and the moment of his highest achievements the time he was tapped for an exclusive senior society at the Ivy University to which his father had given millions. Since that day, he has felt no need for further aspiring, no urge to do anything except settle down on his estate and live the life of a country gentleman, mildly interested in saddle horses and sport models of foreign automobiles. He is not the blatantly silly playboy heir to millions whose antics make newspaper headlines. He doesn't drink much, except when he attends his class reunion every spring, the most exciting episode of each year for him. He doesn't give wild parties, doesn't chase after musical comedy cuties, is a mildly contented husband and father of 3 children. A not unpleasant man, affable, good-looking in an ordinary way, sunburnt and healthy, beginning to take on fat. He is simply immature, naturally lethargic, and a bit stupid. Coddled from birth, everything arranged and made easy for him. Deferred to because of his wealth, he usually has the self-confident attitude of acknowledged superiority, but assumes a supercilious, insecure air when dealing with people beyond his ken. He is dressed in a beautifully tailored English tweed coat and whipcord riding breeches, immaculately polished English riding boots with spurs, and carries a riding crop in his hand. It would be hard to find anyone more ill-equipped for combat with the Hogans. He has never come in contact with anyone like them. To make matters easier for them, he is deliberate in his speech, slow on the uptake, and has no sense of humor. The experienced strategy of the Hogans in verbal battle is to take the offensive at once and never let an opponent get set to hit back. Also, they use a beautifully coordinated, bewildering change of pace, switching suddenly from jarring shouts to low, confidential vituperation, and they exaggerate their Irish brogues to confuse an enemy still further. Harder walks toward Hogan, stiffly. Good morning. I want to see the man who runs this farm. Hogan surveys him deliberately, his little pig eyes gleaming with malice. You do ya? Well, you've seen him. So run along now and play with your horse and don't bother me. He turns to Josie, who is staring at Harder, much to his discomfiture, as if she had discovered a cockroach in her soup. Do you see what I see, Josie? God, you'll have to give that damned cat of yours a spanking for bringing it to our doorstep. Harder, determined to be authoritative and command respect. Curtly. Are you Hogan? Hogan, insultingly. I am Mr. Philip Hogan, to a gentleman. Josie glares at Harder. Where's your manners, you spindle-shanked jockey? Were you brought up in a stable? Harder. Does not fight with ladies, and especially not with this lady. Ignoring her. My name is Harder. He obviously expects them to be immediately impressed and apologetic. Hogan, contemptuously. Who asked you your name, me little man? Josie. Sure. Who in the world cares who the hell you are? Hogan. But if you want to play politeness, we'll play with you. Let me introduce you to my daughter. Harder. Miss Josephine Hogan. Josie. Petulantly. I don't want to meet him, father. I don't like his silly sheep's face, and I have no use for jockeys. Anyway, I'll wager he's no damned good to a woman. From inside her bedroom comes a burst of laughter. This revelation of an unseen audience startles Harder. He begins to look extremely unsure of himself. Hogan. I don't think he's a jockey. It's only the funny pants he's wearing. I'll bet you if you asked his horse, you'd find he's no cowboy either. To Harder, jeeringly. Come. Tell us the truth, me honey. Don't you kiss your horse each time you mount and beg him. Please don't throw me today, darling, and I'll give you an extra bucket of oats. He bursts into an extravagant roar of laughter, slapping his thigh, and Josie guffaws with him while they watch the discording effect of this theatrical mirth on Harder. Harder, beginning to lose his temper. Listen to me, Hogan. I didn't come here. He's going to add to listen to your damn jokes or something like that, but Hogan silences him. Hogan shouts, What? What's that you said? He stares at the dumbfounded Harder with droll amazement, as if he couldn't believe his ears. You didn't come here? He turns to Josie in a whisper. Did you hear that, Josie? He takes off his hat and scratches his head in comic bewilderment. Well, that's a puzzle, surely. How do you suppose he got here? Josie. Maybe the stork brought him. Bad luck to it for a dirty bird. Again, Tyrone's laughter is heard from the bedroom. Harder. So off balance now, he can only repeat angrily. I said I didn't come here. Hogan shouts, Wait now, threateningly. We've had enough of that. Say it a third time and I'll send my daughter to telephone the asylum. Harder, forgetting he's a gentleman. Damn you, I'm the one who's had enough. Josie shouts, Hold your dirty tongue. I'll have no foul language in my presence. Hogan. Ugh, don't mind him, Josie. He said he isn't here anyway, so we won't talk to him behind his back. He regards Harder with pity and contempt. Sure ain't you the poor crazy creature? Do you want us to believe you're on your own? You want us to believe you're your own ghost? Harder. Notices the bottle on the boulder for the first time. Tries to be contemptuously tolerant and even to smile with condescending disdain. I understand it now. You're drunk. I'll come back sometime when you're sober, or send Simpson. He turns away, glad of an excuse to escape. Josie jumps up and advances on him menacingly. No, you don't. You'll apologize first for insulting a lady, insinuating I'm drunk this early in the day, or I'll knock some good breeding in you. Harder, actually frightened now. I said nothing about you. Hogan gets up to come between them. Easy now, Josie. He didn't mean it. You don't know what he means, the poor loon. To Harder, pityingly. Run home. That's a good lad, before your keeper misses you. Harder, hastily. Good day. He turns eagerly toward the left, but suddenly Hogan grabs his shoulder and spins him around, then shifts his grip to the lapel of Harder's coat. Hogan, grimly. Wait now, me honey boy. I'll have a word with you if you please. I'm beginning to read some sense into this. You mentioned that English bastard Simpson. I know who you are now. Harder, outraged. Take Your hands off me, you drunken fool. He raises his riding crop. Josie grabs it and tears it from his hand with one powerful twist fiercely. Would you strike my poor, infirm old father, you coward, you? Harder, calling for help. McCabe? Hogan. Don't think McCabe will hear you if you blew Gabriel's horn. He knows I or Josie can lick him with one hand. Sharply. Josie, stand between us and the gate. Josie takes her stand where the path meets the road. She turns her back for a moment, shaking with suppressed laughter, and waves her hand at McCabe and turns back. Hogan releases his hold on Harder's coat. There now. Don't try running away or my daughter will knock you senseless. He goes on grimly before Harder can speak. You're the blackguard of a millionaire that owns the estate next to ours, ain't you? I've been meaning to call on you, for I've a bone to pick with you, you bloody tyrant. But I couldn't bring myself to set foot on land bought with Standard Oil money that was stolen from the poor at ground and the dust beneath its dirty heel. Land that's watered with the tears of starving widows and orphans. He abruptly switches from this eloquence to a matter-of-fact tone. But never mind that now. I won't waste words trying to reform a born crook. Fiercely shoving his dirty, unshaven face almost into Harder's. What I want to know is, what the hell do you mean by your contemptible trick of breaking down your fence to entice my poor pigs to take their death in your ice pond? There is a shout of laughter from Josie's bedroom, and Josie doubles up and holds her sides. Harder is so flabbergasted by this mad accusation he cannot even sputter, but Hogan acts as if he denied it, savagely. Don't lie now. None of your damned Standard Oil excuses, or bejesus, I'll break you in half. Haven't I mended that fence morning after morning and seen the footprints where you had sneaked up in the night to pull it down again? How many times have I mended that fence, Josie? Josie. If it's once, it's 100, Father. Hogan. Listen, me little millionaire. I'm a peaceful, mild man that believes in live and let live. And as long as the neighboring scum leave me alone, I'll let them alone. But when it comes to standing by and seeing my poor pigs murdered one by one, Josie, how many pigs is it caught their death of cold in this damned ice pond and died of pneumonia? Josie. 10 of them, Father, and 10 more died of cholera after drinking the dirty water in it. Hogan. All prize pigs, too. I was offered $200 apiece for them. 20 pigs at $200, that's $4,000. And $1,000 to cure the sick and cover funeral expenses for the dead. Call it $4,000 you owe me. Furiously. And you'll pay for it, or I'll sue you, so help me Christ. I'll drag you in every court in the land. I'll paste your ugly mug on the front page of every newspaper as a pig-murdering tyrant. Before I'm through with you, you'll think you're the King of England at an Irish wake. With a quick change of pace to a wheeling, confidential tone. Tell me now, if it isn't a secret, whatever made you take such a savage grudge against pigs? Sure, it isn't reasonable for a Standard Oil man to hate hogs. Harder. Manages to get in 3 sputtering words. I've had enough. Hogan. With a grin. Be God, I believe you. Switching to fierceness and grabbing his lapel again. Look out now. Keep your place and be soft-spoken to your betters. You're not in your shiny automobile now with your funny nose cocked so you won't smell the poor people. He gives him a shake. And let me warn you, I have to put up with a lot of pests on this heap of boulders some joker once called a farm. There's a cruel skinflint of a landlord who swindles me out of my last drop of whiskey, and there's poison ivy and ticks and potato bugs, and there's snakes and skunks. But be God, I drew the line somewhere on, and I'll be damned if I'll stand for a Standard Oil man trespassing. So will you kindly get the hell out of here before I plant a kick on your backside that'll land you in the Atlantic Ocean? He gives Harder a shove. Beat it now. Harder tries to make some sort of disdainfully dignified exit, but he has to get by Josie. Josie leers at him idiotically. Sure you wouldn't go without a word of goodbye to me, would you, darlin'? Don't scorn me just because you have on your jockey's pants. In a hoarse whisper, meet me tonight, as usual, down by the pig pen. Harder's retreat becomes a rout. He disappears on the left, but a second later his voice, trembling with anger, is heard calling back threateningly. Harder, if you dare touch that fence again, I'll put the matter in the hands of the police. Hogan shouts derisively, and I'll put it in my lawyer's hands and in the newspapers. He doubles up with glee. Look at him, fling himself on his nag and spur the poor beast. And look at McCabe behind him. He can hardly stay on the saddle for laughing. He slaps his thigh. Oh, Jesus, this is a great day for the poor and oppressed. I'll do no more work. I'll go down to the inn and spend money and get drunk as Moses. Josie. Small blame to you. You deserve it. But you'll have your dinner first to give you a foundation. Come on now. They turn back toward the house. From inside, another burst of laughter from Tyrone is heard. Josie smiles. Listen to Jim, still in stitches. It's good to hear him laugh as if he meant it. Tyrone appears in the doorway of her bedroom. Tyrone. Oh, God, my sides are sore. They all laugh together. He joins them at the left corner of the house. Josie. It's dinner time. Will you have a bit to eat with us, Jim? I'll boil you some eggs. Hogan. Ugh, why do you have to mention eggs? Don't you know it's the one thing he might eat? Well, no matter. Anything goes today. He gets the bottle of whiskey. Come in, Jim. We'll have a drink while Josie's fixing the grub. They start to go in the front door, Hogan in the lead. Tyrone. Suddenly, with sardonic amusement. Wait a minute. Let us pause to take a look at this very valuable property. Don't you notice the change, Phil? Every boulder on the place has turned to solid gold. Hogan. What the hell? You didn't get the DTs from my whiskey, I know that. Tyrone. No DTs about it. This farm has suddenly become a gold mine. You know that offer I told you about? Well, the agent did a little detective work and he discovered it came from Harder. He doesn't want the damned place, but he dislikes you as a neighbor, and he thinks the best way to get rid of you would be to become your landlord. Hogan. The sneaking skunk. I'm sorry I didn't give him that kick. Tyrone. Yes, so am I. That would have made the place even more valuable. But as it is, you did nobly. I expect him to double or triple his first offer. In fact, I'll bet the sky is the limit now. Hogan gives Josie a meaningful look. I see your point, but we're not worrying you'd ever forget your promise to us for any price. Tyrone. Promise? What promise? You know what Kipling wrote. Paraphrasing the rhyme of the Three Sealers. There's never a promise of God or man goes north of 10,000 bucks. Hogan. Did you hear him, Josie? We can't trust him. Josie. Oh, you know he's kidding. Hogan. I don't? I'm becoming suspicious. Tyrone. A trace of bitterness beneath his amused tone. That's wise dope, Phil. Trust and be a sucker. If I were you, I'd be seriously worried. I've always wanted to own a gold mine so I could sell it. Josie bursts out. Will you shut up, your rotten Broadway blather? Tyrone stares at her in surprise. Why so serious and indignant, Josie? You just told your unworthy old man I was kidding. To Hogan. At last I've got you by the ears, Phil. We must have a serious chat about when you're going to pay that back rent. Hogan. Groans. A landlord who's a blackmailer. Holy God, what next? Josie is smiling with relief now. Tyrone. And you, Josie. Please remember when I keep that moonlight date tonight, I expect you to be very sweet to me. Josie, with a bold air. Sure, you don't have to blackmail me. I'd be that to you anyway. Hogan. Are you laying plots in my presence to seduce my only daughter? Then, philosophically. Well, what can I do? I'll be drunk at the inn, so how could I prevent it? He goes up the steps. Let's eat, for the love of God. I'm starving. He disappears inside the house. Josie, with an awkward, playful gesture, takes Tyrone by the hand. Come along, Jem. Tyrone smiles kiddingly. Afraid you'll lose me? Swell chance. His eyes fix on her breasts with genuine feeling. You have the most beautiful breasts in the world. Do you know it, Josie? Josie, pleased, shyly. I don't, but I'm happy if you think. Then quickly. But I've no time now to listen to your kidding, with my mad old father waiting for his dinner. So come on. She tugs at his hand and he follows her up the steps. Her manner changes to worried solicitude. Promise me you'll eat something, Jim. You've got to eat. You can't go on the way you are, drinking and never eating hardly. You're killing yourself. Tyrone, sardonically. That's right. Mother me, Josie. I love it. Josie. Bullying. I will then. You need one to take care of you. They disappear inside the house. Curtain.